Hello, lovers and friends. Welcome to another Motivation Mondays episode. I hope you're having a wonderful start to your day. And listen, last week is over. It's done, it's dusted. There's nothing you can do about it. All we can do is set our eyes on the future and hope to do better this week. So sit back, relax, whether you are listening on your way to work, or it's the end of the day, or you're listening while you're in the shower, getting ready for a hectic day. It doesn't matter. Relax, listen, and let's get through this topic together. I'm excited, you're excited. Let's get into it. Hello. I hope you had a wonderful week. And this week's episode, I will not be getting too much into what happened last week, only because it will be trickled in with today's topic. And today's topic, we're talking about finding yourself in spaces where, things are not being reciprocated, right? Your energy is not being reciprocated. Your kindness is not being reciprocated. And sort of the decisions that you kind of have to make in those moments, right? In this past week, my colleagues really let me down. I work for an NGO, and a really small NGO with a really small staff. So oftentimes in such spaces, people have to wear like multiple hats for the sake, of the success of the organization. And these past 3 weeks has been like fundraising season for us. So we have all sorts of events and it's just really busy. And I have a lot of like roles and responsibilities at work, like on a day-to-day basis. But when the season comes around, I find myself doing double duty where I'm on the ground, at the coalface of social ills and doing my best to make sure that our commitment to the community is, kept. But then there's also sort of higher level things that I'm involved in that also take a lot of my time, right? So I'm doing all this double duty and sometimes I need help. And I have like 4 amazing interns who are always willing to go above and beyond to make sure that, I'm okay and that the task is done, and they're fantastic. But obviously, because I have a lot on my plate, that sometimes they too are also spread thin and I need extra hands. And that's where my other colleagues come in. So I ask for their help, right? I ask them to, step in some places where it doesn't require, that much skill or effort, and maybe just step in for an hour, and that's all good. And not only did they not help, but they didn't even acknowledge that the request was made. I was ignored so many times. Every single time I had made a request, no one even acknowledged that I was speaking. And it really frustrated me. And obviously, going to therapy and you always have to sort of like reflect and think deep and rah, 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 rah. And, sometimes you don't want to think deep because actually, fuck you. I've helped you so many times, and it's not even that I feel like you are indebted to me, but we're supposed to be a team. I'm not asking some stranger on the street. I'm asking the guy that I work with, right? That this work benefits all of us. It allows all of us to continue doing what we're doing. It allows all of us to keep our jobs. And you don't want to step in and step up to help your fellow colleague, right? Who's working towards the same goal that you are. And I know I wasn't asking for too much because I know their schedules. I know when they're busy and I know when they're not. And I wouldn't have asked if I thought that they would be busy. But even if they couldn't, for whatever reason, to not even acknowledge that I've made the request pissed me off beyond words. Oh my gosh, I was shaking in frustration. And I had to sit and think about like, why did it upset me so much, right? And I wondered, like, is it because I'm finding myself in a position where am I actually like angry at these people because they're exercising a freedom that I don't feel that I have access to, right? As a people pleaser and as someone who, kind of felt like my yes has never really been something that wasn't informed yes, right? I always felt obliged to say yes. And as much as I'm slowly working on that and like checking in with myself before agreeing to helping someone or whatever, but that it's still something I struggle with. So to see someone else, exercise that freedom just willy nilly, then maybe my anger is coming from a place of like envy. But then I was like, no, actually, because it took me a long time to get to a point where I could even have the courage to ask for help, right? So I know that I've grown a lot in that regard. And as much as I still struggle to ask for and receive help, um, in those moments, I really did need the help. And I'm not picky about who helps me. I cast a wide net to sort of make sure that I have as many, to increase my chances of getting a yes somewhere, because I really do need this help and I wouldn't have asked if I didn't need it. So for everyone in the organization to ignore me, right? Not a single person even acknowledged what I was saying. I was just like, no, actually, it's a matter of respect and common decency. And this is what's pissing me off. That I always, try my best to treat everyone around me with respect, because I think as a person, as like just a baseline, sort of standard, that we should all treat each other with respect and common decency. And then we can move up from there depending on how close we are or whatever. That even if I hate your guts, that doesn't disqualify you from, common decency and respect, right? And that has served me well, obviously, because you oftentimes find yourself working with people that you don't get along with, that you don't like. But that shouldn't affect how you treat them, and that shouldn't affect your working relationship with them, right? You can keep your distance, but you can still sort of respect them as a person and accept that you don't have to like everyone and you won't always understand or get along with everyone. So yeah, so I think for me the frustration came from just the shock of realizing the truth of the environment that I was in, that I'm actually in a space that is not reciprocal, a space where it isn't a matter of give and take, that it's just take on their part. Because everyone in the organization has asked me for help at some point for something, be it regarding their job or something personal, but they've asked me for help for something. And there are many times where I've offered my help freely when I could see that they needed that help, right? And it wasn't because I was trying to earn favor or, to get points on them so that I could cash in later. It was just because that was my understanding of the space that we're in, that one, I am that person regardless. But that I'm more willing to do that because of the work that we do, that we are, in community, we are doing a lot of community work. And oftentimes the people who are helping don't get that much help. So we have to support each other to make sure that we don't burn out and that our needs are taken care of, because we oftentimes put ourselves last. And I had made that assumption about my colleagues. I assumed that because they were in this type of work and that they'd been doing this type of work for so long, that they were the type of people who, I make this podcast for, right? The type of people who put the needs of others first. Because from my experience, those are the type of people that I oftentimes saw, being gravitated to this type of work. And the people who stayed in it for as long as everyone else has, because, they really see a need in the community and they're willing to almost lay down their lives to make sure that they leave the community just, that much better than what they found it. So, than how they found it. But I was wrong. I was wrong. And not only was I wrong about just who they were as people, but I was also wrong about their character. So to find out that I'm in this situation that is not reciprocal was really frustrating. And not that I regret any of the help that I gave them, but it felt really isolating, right? And I felt like, oh my gosh, like I'm working myself to the bone and I'm working alone, that I can't even die on the job. Like I can't even die because there would be no one who would be willing to sort of take the mantle and keep things moving, and that if I believe in this mission, that I'm going to have to run this race alone. And like, I would have then just started my own thing, right? So yeah, there was a lot of that frustration, but I think the growth point was the fact that I was able to communicate that, right? Instead of burning alone and, filling up with resentment and I was like, oh, fuck these guys, and suddenly becoming cold and shutting everyone out, I communicated my frustration and I said, like, listen, this is my experience of you, especially these past 3 weeks. And I never really noticed it because I'm not the type of person to ask for help all the time. So there weren't that many opportunities for me to see this, but I see it now and I see it clearly and I can't unsee it. And I'm disappointed by all of you. I mean, there were a lot of F-bombs that happened. I was, in the throes of, fatigue and all sorts of emotions. Loki also broke up with someone that day as well. Like, everybody could get it. I was not in the mood. You can't reciprocate my feelings. You can't match my energy. You don't deserve anything. I was in that mood. And I've since calmed down, but I stand by everything I said, okay? I shared what I shared. But anyway, yeah, I laid it all out. I was like, actually, this time you let me down. This time. And it's not even the fact that none of you showed up. It's the fact that you failed to even treat me like a human. And I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate that at all. So this is what's going to happen moving forward, right? I've seen you, and I don't like this. I want to continue doing my work, and I want to have peace of mind while doing it. So these are the boundaries that I'm setting in place now that I'm aware of you, because I can't escape this space. Like, I could look for another job and, lucky, don't tell my boss, but I am. But in the meantime, this is how I'm going to protect my peace, right? And I had to sort of communicate that with my managers as well, saying that, like, listen, moving forward, if I'm given these extra responsibilities, if I have to do that, then this is going to have to be canceled, or this is going to have to be, put on pause for the day so that I can complete this. I can't do these two things at the same time because I don't have any support. So, and I just made it clear and I communicated with everyone, and I feel a lot better now because I know that I won't be put in a position that I was in, for the past 3 weeks, where I have to sort of split myself in half and be, in one place and another place at the same time. And like the two places are like an hour apart from each other. And, I'm just sort of running on fumes because I don't have time to like sleep, because when I'm not there, then I'm there. And if I'm not there, then I'm prepping for the next thing. And it's just a lot, right? Because it's not good for me either. Right? It's not good for my health, and I need to speak up for myself. But in general, I had always kind of been on the fence about, leaving this job, because I really believe in the work that we do and I really love doing what I do. Even though, shout out to the previous episode where I was talking about maybe having to change careers or considering changing careers because of, I'm slowly starting to realize that the person that I have become may be a result of needing to survive my environment as a child. And that part of that could be, choosing this type of work where I am giving of myself all the time because I've never been in a position where I could just receive freely, right? That if I want any sort of praise, if I want any sort of like affirmation that maybe I'm a good person, that I'd have to work myself to the bone. And that's the only way that I could find myself feeling worthy or deserving of affection, praise, any sort of positive energy directed towards me. And that now I'm just tired mentally, physically. I'm tired of working myself at this level, you know what I mean? And that I deserve rest, and that maybe the love and positivity that I want directed towards me should come from within. And that I should be better at identifying spaces that don't serve me. And that includes this workspace, right? that maybe even if I do continue to do NGO work, that I'm going to do it for an organization that has care built into its system, that I don't have to rely on the benevolence of strangers to ensure that my needs are met and that people are made aware of the fact that, rest is just as important as productivity, and that rest is a form of productivity as well. Shout out to my therapist for letting me know, you know what I mean? And I've been struggling with that, but don't tell him. But yeah. So these are now sort of the things that I'm thinking about, and thanks to my colleagues being assholes, because I don't think I would have had the opportunity to, speak with my full chest and let bitches know what time it is. But also a great opportunity. Sorry, that's my washing machine running in the background, and I have a deep conditioner in my hair. I am multitasking. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. That's just a little, side piece. But yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak up for myself, on such a large platform, even though my voice was shaking. And it was mostly shaking not because I was on the verge of tears, but because I was holding back a lot of swear words and a lot of I wanted to read every single person in the room one by one and use my long, natural, beautiful nails to pluck out every single hair from their heads. I was livid, but that's neither here nor there. And the reason why I was thinking about this was because a couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine was in a somewhat similar predicament, right, with two friends of hers, where she thought that, the relationship was one way, only to find that, the people didn't appreciate, or her two other friends didn't appreciate her in the way that she had appreciated them, that they weren't reciprocating the love, care, and consideration that she was handing out so freely to these people, right? And we cannot necessarily shame people for not doing what we would do in those situations, because they're acting in their own best interests, and their actions are informed by a variety of things that we may not know anything about, right? And that sometimes it isn't even personal, it's not even an attack on you, that's just who they are. And that's fine, right? In theory, it's fine, but it can be also very disappointing because you care about someone, you consider them to be a close friend, so you act accordingly, right? You behave and you treat them in the way that you would treat someone that you care about deeply. And then they claim to care about you too, but they're not reciprocating the love and the care, that they're not even inviting you to their birthday parties, and that you're finding out on social media that this thing was actively kept secret from you. Now sort of you're getting slapped in the face with the reality of the relationship, that maybe you weren't seeing things in the same way. And kudos to my friend for not sort of begging to be loved and, moping around about it, but just receiving the information and saying, okay, I'll act accordingly. I don't think you can ever be wrong with handing out love, right, and being a kind, loving person. If that's who you truly are and it's not some sort of manipulation tactic, and we will talk about being a people pleaser, because my people pleaser side has me in a chokehold. Because, the chest pains of when you try and set a boundary. Oh my gosh. But we will talk about that. Don't worry. But shout out to her for understanding that okay, cool. This is what you have to offer me right now. And that doesn't make you a good person. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that you're not for me. Because I operate on this level that if you're in my life, just standard, regardless of whether I think you're my best friend or whatever, but if you are in my life for any reason, that this is the type of care that you will receive. And I deserve the same type of care in return. I'm not doing it because I want you to do that to me. I'm not buying love here. but I want to be around people who are just as loving as I am, who are just as caring as I am. And if you are not like that, for whatever reason, that's fine. Do you, boo, but do it over there, because you're not going to do it over here with me. And chef's kiss, chef's kiss. I am inspired. One day when I grow up, I wish to be like my friend. But I sat back and really thought about that like, yeah, people come in and out of our lives, and all we can really do is be our true selves, right? Whatever version of ourselves that feel true at that time. And things can change, and that's why sometimes, relationship changes, and, relationships change, and people can say that they've like outgrown each other or whatever. But if you are honest about who you are and act with intention and act, in a genuine manner with no malice, it's just who you are. And not as a cop out, for harmful behavior, but you don't have to dim your light to make other people feel more comfortable. You don't have to shine brighter and burn yourself out, to compete with other people, to compete for love. You just be you, the best version of you that you can be. And we are all on this journey trying to be better, right? So we need to give ourselves some grace. But as long as you are trying to be your best self, because I honestly believe that for most people, in every moment, even in our worst moments, that we are trying our best, and that sometimes our best is not good enough, right? But if you are genuinely trying your best, you deserve to have whatever energy that is reciprocated back at you, right? You deserve to be in an environment that feeds into you as much as you feed into it. And if you're not the type of person who be feeding into people and you be hella selfish or whatever, then go find selfish friends as well, right? Don't be a taker. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. And if that's the genuine you, go hang out with other takers and go piss each other off there in a circle. But don't go actively seeking out givers so that you can suck them dry, because that's malicious, right? But if you don't know, right, if you didn't know that about yourself, that's where sort of learning about yourself and going on the journey of trying to always be better, and not like, and we'll talk about that at a later stage, because I was quarter to going down a rabbit hole, but I promise this episode will be short, and it is. I mean, less than 30 minutes. I feel like that's a quick, situation, lunch break vibe, commute to work vibe. But anyway, we all deserve to receive the love that we give so freely, especially for my target audience homies. I know that you would give the clothes off your back to make sure that someone else around you was taken care of, even if it was a stranger, and you deserve to be met with the same kindness, the same care, the same respect, because that is what you're putting out in the world. That's, what you are giving society and the universe as a whole, and you deserve to have that poured into you. But unfortunately, where the disconnect comes is whether we feel deserving of receiving such things. Because if you haven't taken the time to do that work to heal whatever is sort of broken inside you, or at least become aware of those things, then you don't get to the point where you can identify that, like, no, this is not for me. I don't deserve this. I am thebomb.com, and there's no way that this shit is what I'm supposed to be swallowing for the rest of my life. Zero, right? But if you don't work on those core beliefs that you have about yourself, then you'll constantly accept less than what you deserve. But you also won't advocate for yourself when you are confronted with the bare minimum. So yeah, I think the task for this week is to find yourself in reciprocal spaces, to demand reciprocal energy, right? And it's not always going to be like all the time, but at least find yourself with people who are willing and able to pour into you as much as you pour into them. And it won't always be at the same time. It's never going to be 50-50. But don't find yourself with people who are running on zero, that they're quite happy giving you nothing and letting you do all the work. That is not on. Because there will be times when you have nothing to give, and that's the opportunity for the other person to step up and, fill that gap in the same way that you would do for them. So yeah, bare minimum should be the love that you give. And I wish you end up receiving more than the bare minimum. I wish that you find yourself in a situation where you are being overwhelmed and overflowed with just love, and it's just bashing you in the face to the point where you can't take it anymore. You know what I mean? That the current version of you has to die in order for a newer version of you to grow, to bloom, a version of you that has the capacity to receive more and more love. Let us build a tolerance for joy, because we're used to all this fucked up shit. We're used to being abused and neglected and taken advantage of. Like, that's an average Tuesday afternoon. Let us get to a point where we shed this skin that has been toughened by the worst that life has to offer, and let us reveal this new, soft, supple skin that is able to absorb all of joy's light, all of joy's warmth, because right now we're so hard and calloused that even when something good does come around, we can't let it in. We can't identify what that thing is. We can't even feel it. Right? We don't let it get to us because of this hard shell. So for this week, I hope that we can all become more sensitive to the people around us, the people that we are keeping in our circle. Remember last week, we were talking about the corner of our circle. And as much as you may have your hardcore diehards who are in your corner, let us re-examine our corners, our circle of influence, right? Last week, we spent the week, appreciating and looking for things to be grateful for. That was a week of gratitude. And I really hope that you spent that week really appreciating all the amazingness that was around you. Because, oh my gosh, as much as my colleagues let me down, and boy, did they let me down, I was amazed by the kindness and generosity of strangers, people who didn't know me from above soap, but they stayed up in the middle of the night to help me. They remembered like a random thing that I mentioned and brought it for me. They saw that like I had been working and hadn't eaten, so they got me something to eat without even asking. And they were just like, you seem like the type of person that if I'd asked if you were hungry, you would have said no. So I just decided to bring you food anyway because I've been watching you and you haven't been eating and you need to take care of yourself. An entire stranger. You know what I mean? And that's also why it motivated me to break up with the person that I broke up with, because I was just like, bitch, strangers be out here doing the most and you won't even come down the street. Bye. And I feel nothing. Maybe once I've had enough sleep, because I'm low-key sleep deprived, all my feelings will rush in. But no, I do not care, because it is the kindness of these strangers that made me realize that I need more people like this in my life. That if a stranger, has this amount of care in them for another stranger, that I need the people in my circle to level up. You know what I mean? I need them to level up. And why am I allowing this to be my circle of influence, right? Because when you look at the people you keep around you, that is a reflection of how you see yourself. That is a reflection of who you are. So do I want these, callous, unappreciative, selfish people in my space? Is that who I am? Is that what I think I deserve? And if maybe at my core that's what I deserve, then that's what I think I deserve, then that's what needs to be fixed, right? So this week's assignment, look at the people around you, look at your circle of influence. And as much as we have spent a lot of time looking at all the things that we can be grateful for, let us look at the very same people now and see how they are a reflection of what we think we deserve. Because last week I told you about two friends who work in direct contrast to what I think I deserve. And I don't know why they have, insisted on being my friend, but I will always be grateful for them and their 10 years of friendship, because their love and their care has brought me closer towards my best self. That if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have the constant reminder of I deserve better. Because if these two friends can love me in the way that they do, that is what everyone else is competing with. Even when it comes to my romantic relationships, I hold a very high standard for my romantic relationships, even though I attract the worst and I entertain, some pretty raggedy bitches. Because, at my core, that's what I think I deserve. But it gets to a point where I'm just like, is there someone that, Yenzi or Naomi would be happy with me dating? The people who see me as the best version of myself, right? Who see a version of me that I have not seen yet. Would they be happy with seeing their friend with this person? And if the answer is no, these people get to step in. And that's what I need in my circle of influence. Because I'm not with my besties, Naomi and Yenzi, all the time, because as much as they are my closest friends spiritually, they are my furthest away friends, geographically. But I do have people that I keep, in my circle, people that I hang out with and, do activities with and all of that stuff. And am I, is my space a true reflection of who I want to be? Am I rejecting, the people that are offering love freely? And am I bringing in, people who are just sucking the life out of me, who just want me to be their, emotional whipping post or whatever, right? So this week, really look at your circle of influence and even look at the people who you claim are in your corner. Are they really in your corner? Look at everyone with a critical eye and look at them as if they are a reflection of your core beliefs, especially if you're not sure about what that story is that you tell yourself about yourself, right? That you haven't really tapped into that yet. That a useful thing that has worked for me, especially when I sort of check in with myself, and I do that like every 6 months or so, like every year, and especially around my birthday, I will check in with sort of like, who are these people that I've now accumulated in my life, right? How are they treating me? How do they behave? How are they just as people, right? Outside of me, the stories that they tell me about, things that they do outside of when we're together. All of these people, how is this a reflection of me? How is this a reflection of what I believe about myself? How is this a reflection of what I deserve, And looking back on the relationship now, not clouded by sort of the endorphins of new friendship and the excitement of whatever, just looking at it as coldly as I possibly can. Is this a good relationship? Would I be happy seeing my brother or my sister being friends with this type of person? And sometimes that really helps, like when I remove myself from the situation and just say, would I be happy seeing someone I love be friends with this person? And if my answer is no, then that's a sign that, like, there's something internal, there's something I need to work on, right? There's something either I need to learn from the situation, or that this person's existence in my circle is just sort of, they're just there to highlight, another thing about myself that I need to work on. And, I have become really good at actually ending relationships and friendships. And that's also something else I need to work on, right? My attachment issues. Um, but I find it very useful, right? I find it very useful to be like, actually, this person has been really amazing. And because of how amazing they've been, I've kind of kept them to the side that I haven't been engaging with them. I haven't been reaching out as much. And that needs to change. And that's why I've also managed to keep a lot of really good friendships because I check in with myself and I check those relationships. And the people that I see have, who bring that light, who are giving that love freely, but for whatever reason, I've been sort of keeping them at bay. That's where I then push myself to be like, no, this is who I need to be going towards, right? My autopilot is taking me towards the wrong people. And I maybe haven't been operating in, a state of intention and purpose because I've been, distracted by life stresses and work and all of those things. But now that I've given myself the time to reassess my situation, this is my time to pivot, right? I will be kind and gracious to myself as I, sort of acknowledge and face the fact that I haven't been kind to myself. And through this friendship, I have allowed a lot of negativity into my life and I've reaffirmed the wrong things about myself. But this is why we check in with ourselves, right? And this is the opportunity for us to then pivot towards the positivity because it's always there, right? There's always something positive that's happening that we're just maybe not aware of because we haven't been trained to. We don't have that skill. We haven't worked that muscle to turn our neck towards the positive side, that our neck is pretty, tilted to the other side. So we need that, that sort of autocorrect, that sort of, okay, the car is not an automatic anymore. Time to take out, the gearbox. And I'm going to have to drive manual for some time. I'm going to have to be on gear 2 and stay on gear 2 maybe for some time because I'm climbing up a hill, right? And I need the power. I don't need the speed right now. I need the power it will take for me to reach the precipice, right? So I'm going to have to be on manual, be intentional, get that clutch control going. And I might sort of, you have to stop at some point, right? And go back to gear 1, maybe handbrake up. And when it's time to go, you know what I mean? You have to have that clutch control, you know what I mean? Put it in the first gear. Put a little gas, not too much. And even if you kill the car, it's not the end of the world, right? Because people tend to panic when they kill the car in the middle of an intersection and all the cars behind you are hooting and whatever. They will not die. The people behind you in line, they will not die. It's either they'll move around, they'll figure themselves out. We are all on our own journey, and you can make mistakes. You can fall back into old relationships and start texting an ex, or have an old friend creep back into your life, or start doing some things that are actually harmful things, right? Fall into those self-harm habits. And that's okay, right? You stop the car, you take a deep breath, pull the handbrake up, make sure that the car doesn't roll back. And if it does roll back a little, okay, right? Pull the handbrake up, take a deep breath, right? Forget all the noise of all the people hooting around you and calling you all sorts of things and whatever. Start the engine again. Go back into the first gear and try again. Because you're going to get to where you're going eventually at your own time, right? And shouting at yourself, being angry at yourself, getting out the car and slashing all the other tires out of frustration, that's not going to help you, right? So take your time as you slowly climb up this hill to becoming the best version of yourself. Stop and look around. Maybe it's the passengers in your car that are a distraction. They keep playing the music too loud. They are, giving you the wrong advice. They have given you the wrong directions, and now you find yourself climbing this hill when you actually didn't have to. So you need to, drop these people off and say, okay, please get out. You know what I mean? I don't need you in the passenger seat of my car right now. Or maybe you're sitting in the passenger seat of your own car, letting other people drive you around, and you find yourself upset, right? That you're not going to where you need to go, but it's because you haven't allowed yourself to take charge of your own life, that you allow yourself to be governed and led by your friends, but then you're not choosing the right friends to lead you. You're not choosing the right partners to lead you. So then in that case, pull the handbrake, even if you're in the passenger seat. And this is the proverbial handbrake. Please, passengers, if you're in a real car, do not pull the handbrake. You're going to kill everyone. But metaphorically, pull the handbrake. Yes, it's going to cause a mess. Yes, it might cause an accident, but that's what might be necessary for you to confront whoever you are allowing to take charge of your life, and get everything to stop. Just have a full reset, right? But that's a chat for another day. For now, this week, let's just look at the people we have in our lives. Let's look at the passengers. Let's look at who we are keeping in our circle of influence and question whether that's the type of influence we want in our lives. Are these people influencing you towards joy, peace, and self-care? Or are these people influencing you into despair and self-flagellation and, regret? But anyway, everyone's definition of quick is relative. This is a lot shorter than last week, but still longer than the first 2 episodes. But I hope you enjoyed today's episode nonetheless. In our outro, I will discuss, give you a little sneak peek into tomorrow's episode. But if this is where you want to end things, I appreciate you listening. I hope that you got some sort of encouragement, some sort of advice, and that you feel a little more hopeful about the week ahead. That you are in full control of your life and your environment and all of those things. And that if you can't change the environment, at least speak up for yourself, right? The least you can do is speak up for yourself and make sure that you are heard, that everybody knows where you stand in terms of how you're being treated, and all of that thing. And even if it falls on deaf ears, that at least your inner child hears you advocating for them, right? Because I'm sure we've all been in situations, especially when we were young, where we needed someone to step in and speak up for us, and they didn't, right? And that's where we learned how to bite our tongues, how to just swallow discomfort and disrespect and just take it on the chin, right? Because no one cares. Because at some point we told someone, how we felt about a situation, and they didn't take us seriously, or they didn't believe us, or they didn't do anything about it. So this is your opportunity to be the adult for yourself, to be that hero and say, listen, the least I can do is speak up and make it known that I'm not happy here, and leave the ball in everybody else's court. Because at least that's a learning opportunity for you as well, right? That they can't say that they didn't know. Right? Everything leading up to this point, they might have had some form of plausible deniability. But from this point moving forward, there's no way they can say that they didn't know. And from this point moving forward, you can see their actions as a deliberate attempt to ignore your needs. And now you can say, okay, this is not the space for me. Because sometimes we need that extra confirmation, right? We want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and that's fine. But speak up for yourself nonetheless. Let it be known that you have needs, and make your needs clear. And let that inner child know that you are here for them, that you have their back, and you're not going to watch them get disrespected, be dishonored, and overlooked anymore. Because you're in the driver's seat now, and you're going to take this life wherever you need it to go. I love you. Goodbye. Enjoy the intro. See you soon. Alrighty. So next week we're going to talk about communication, and like ending off on this episode where we're talking about making your needs known and speaking up for yourself, that sometimes there are tricky parts to communication that makes it very difficult for one to understand whether the message is actually received in the way that you are intending to send it. But we will cover all of that and my little faux pas. And I'll talk about my interns as like great case studies for how communicating the same thing can yield very different results. And it's a little funny as well. And you know what? I'm not going to make promises anymore. If it's long, it's long. And if it's short, it's short. I really hope it's short though, because I like a quick little bite-sized voice note. But we have something in the works for November. So as much as that might seem really far away, I'm working on little, bite-sized, entertaining episodes. So stay tuned, and hopefully we will, get to that point where I can finally reach my lifelong dream of being succinct. But until then, I love you all very much and have a great week.